Good afternoon, UAW family. I'm joining you today from the Chicago Teachers Union Hall, another fighting, member-led union who stood with us all the way. Today I wanted to speak with you all about our record contracts at the Big Three. I wanted to take some time to reflect on how far we've come and the road ahead for our union and our movement. But first, as always, I want to recognize our newest union members and our union family holding the line. Yesterday, 270 workers at Grupo Antolin in Michigan voted overwhelmingly to join our union. We want to welcome these IPS members into the UAW and congratulate UAW organizer Elda Salinas on this big win. Meanwhile, thousands of our union family are on strike as we speak. At Blue Cross Blue Shield, at the Detroit casinos, at Mack Truck, at West Rock in New Jersey, and at CVR Nitrogen, UAW members are still holding the line. As we've said all along, this union is not just a Big Three. And though our industries may be very different, our issues are the same. They are the issues of the working class. These members are using the working class's most powerful weapon, the strike, to take on the most powerful opponents of economic justice, the billionaire class. They're also teaching one another and learning from one another. Fighting and winning is contagious. The best thing we can do for one another is show each other how to be brave, how to be creative, and how to stand up for economic and social justice. That's what our stand-up strike was all about. We needed to fight like we never fought before and win like we've never won before. We had doubters, we had naysayers, and we had enemies. But we also had champions. We had leaders, and we had organizers. And I don't mean people like me, or people on TV, or people who wear suits. I mean you, the workers who really run these companies, the members who really run this union. People fight like their life depends on it because it does. People who take the word solidarity and make it mean something. If you'd have told me 30 years ago or even a year ago that the UAW would be where we are now, I might not have believed you. If you told me we could take on all three of the Big Three at one time and win more in one contract than we have in decades, I probably wouldn't have believed it. If you told me we would kill wage tiers and end the permanent temp situation that's kept our union divided and weak for years, I probably wouldn't have believed that. If you told me we'd be reopening Belvedere and secure a just transition with a pathway for thousands of electric vehicle and battery jobs under our master agreement, I might not have believed you. And if you told me that the vast majority of the American public, from my next door neighbors to the President of the United States, would stand with us, I might not have believed you. 7 weeks ago, I asked all of you for one thing: faith. Not faith in me, not faith in your executive board, but faith in yourselves and faith in each other. I told you if we had faith, we could move mountains. And UAW family, we've done exactly that. Today I want to go through one more time exactly what we want at the Big Three. I want to talk about the dollars and cents company by company. But I also want to make sure we remember we won something else too. We won back our dignity as auto workers. We won back our pride in being UAW and being able to wear this label on our chest. We won back our strike muscle. And we won back a vision to lead our labor movement out of 40 years in the desert towards an economy that works for the working class. Already thousands of non-union auto workers are inspired by our victory and starting to organize. Already non-union automakers like Toyota are raising wages and reducing their progression because they know their workers are ready to stand up. So it goes far beyond the Big Three. For months, we've tried to be the most transparent and the most honest UAW administration ever. So we want to keep that streak going and share what we won, what we didn't, and the major takeaways from this historic round of negotiations. Vice President Booth, Vice President Boyer and Browning, and myself made the decision to bring the tentative agreements we won to the councils and to the membership because we legitimately believe that we squeezed every penny we could get out of these companies. But as we've said many times, what happens next is not up to us. It's up to you, the membership. I don't decide your vote. The executive board doesn't decide your vote. Your local leadership doesn't decide your vote. You decide. And as you know, the highlighters and white books are all available on our websites at uaw.org/Ford2023, uaw.org/Stellantis2023, and uaw.org/GM2023. And I know the term highlighter has a bad reputation to some members. Too many times in the past, our union leadership have tried to give the membership a hard sell, hide the shortcomings, and overhype the modest victories. As you all know by now, I'm not afraid to trash a contract. I led an anti-ratification movement in 2007 when tiers were implemented. But I truly believe these are record contracts and are a major victory for our movement. There were many in the media and in the corporate class who were saying we didn't know what we were doing and they thought we'd never get a deal. But then we got all three. We weren't going to stop short of pounding everything we could out of these companies. We ran the longest national contract strike at the Big Three since 1973. Let me say that again. We just ran the longest Big Three contract strike in 50 years. This was the first time in UAW history that we hit all three companies at once. And it was the first time using our stand-up strike strategy. It was also the first time we got the Big Three to pay for the strike. Let me say that again. As part of our strike settlement, we forced Ford, Stellantis, and GM to pay an extra amount to each member who went on strike or was laid off during the strike on top of their ratification bonus. Just like every other part of the stand-up strike, we had a plan. We agreed to suspend the strike at each company during the ratification vote for two reasons. The first was that it helped to pressure the other companies to settle on our terms. The second reason was that we used the strike settlement agreement to get the companies to pony up and create a fund that we could use to pay our Big Three members who were laid off as a result of the strike, and also pay our Big Three strikers for their time on the picket line. For the first time in UAW history, the Big Three had to pay us back for striking them. That's when you know you've won. So how did we get here? How did we go from a union on defense to going to war for the working class? And how can we keep this winning streak going, not just to the Big Three? This is almost hard to believe, but I was sworn into office only 7 months ago. I made a promise to all of you when I was elected that we were going to do things differently. From the outset, we decided company unionism is dead in the UAW. We were done playing nice with the companies, and we weren't going to keep members in the dark anymore. We held our union's first national town hall over Facebook in June, and after that, we started holding regular Facebook Lives like this one. We made videos showing members taking action and talking honestly about the state of the auto industry. We let members, the public, the politicians, and the companies know our issues from day one. We weren't shy, and we weren't afraid. In the early summer, my office organized the first ever Big Three contract strategy meeting. Vice Presidents Browning, Boyer, and Booth and myself got together with our staff to strategize across all three companies. We weren't going to let the big three play us against each other. We also set a very different tone when we kicked off bargaining. Instead of the ceremonial handshake with the CEOs, we organized a members' handshake. We went to the plants directly to bring the members into the fight and to show the companies this was a very different round of negotiations. And for the first time ever, we ran a contract campaign at the Big Three. It was our union's first time doing this, and we had a short amount of time to do it, but it took off like wildfire. We had contract update sign-up cards in the locals where tens of thousands of members signed up for text and email updates. We had practice pickets, rallies, and local actions. The point of this was to show the companies that our members were ready to take action at a moment's notice. We made sure everyone knew the issues and was fired up and ready to go when the time came. We got results because we weren't afraid to try new things as a union. 2023 was the first time the UAW president has refused to shake hands with the company CEOs and instead shook hands with the members. It was the first time our union ran a contract campaign at the Big Three. It's the first time we made our demands public going into bargaining with the Big Three. It was the first time we updated our members directly on the company's proposals throughout negotiations. And it was the first time we went on strike at all three companies at once. It was our first time using a stand-up strike strategy. We knew this approach wouldn't come easy. Our members and the public wouldn't understand it right away. But that was also its strength. You know who else didn't understand it? The Big Three. For decades, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have whipsawed us against one another. They pitted plant against plant, community against community, and country against country. With the stand-up strike, we gave them a taste of their own medicine, and it turns out they couldn't stomach it. By taking on all three at once, we played them against each other perfectly. By always having another plant ready to walk out at a moment's notice, we backed up our bargaining with an endless strike threat. We could go to GM and say, hey, Stellantis just gave us cost of living allowance. Is it really worth losing Arlington over that? We could go to Stellantis and say, hey, Ford just agreed to write the strike over plant closures. Is it really worth losing Sterling Heights Assembly Plant over that? This strategy was only possible because of you, the membership. You had faith and you were unified. Not every union can go to the bargaining table and say, our members are ready to walk out with zero notice 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's how powerful our solidarity is in the UAW. We started from a 9% wage offer and ended at 25%. We didn't take the first offer. We didn't take the second offer. Across the three companies, we had over 30 contracts offered. About halfway through, the companies caught on to the so-called rules of the stand-up strike. They started slow walking us until Fridays and making last-minute deals to avoid another strike. We decided we needed them to move faster, so we changed the rules. When we took out Kentucky Truck Plant, we didn't give them a heads up. We didn't wait till Friday. And the action of our union family at KTP, Local 862, totally changed the game. It put one of the biggest money makers on the table, and it supercharged our bargaining. Just the threat of taking out a big truck plant quickly got GM and Stellantis to get serious, and things started moving fast. We lined them all up, and then we were ready for the knockout blow. Again, we played the companies off of each other, and we used a strike threat just as much as we used the strike itself. On Facebook Live, we made it very clear that all the truck plants were directly on the table. The companies were put on notice. Either reach a deal or we're going to drop your biggest money makers. And then we escalated that to a fever pitch. On Monday, we took out Sterling Heights Assembly Plant, Stellantis' biggest plant and moneymaker. On Tuesday, we took out Arlington, GM's biggest plant and their biggest moneymaker. And Ford knew what was going to be coming on Wednesday. So by Tuesday afternoon, Ford was begging to get us back to the bargaining table and get a deal done. We were getting text messages while in negotiations about how members at the Rouge were ready to walk at any moment. By the early hours of Wednesday morning, we had a tentative agreement at Ford. From the moment we went on strike, the Big Three nearly doubled the money on the table. When we went on strike on September 15th, the Big Three had a combined $12 billion in new gains on the table for our union. By the end of our stand-up strike, that amount had grown to over $23 billion. Here's what that tells me. Strikes work, and the stand-up strike sure as hell worked. I want to underline just how much we got out of these companies. These gains and these agreements taken together are worth well over 4 times the value of the gains we got in 2019. There's more money in gains in this contract for legacy members than in the entire 2019 contract for all members. There's more money in gains in this contract for in-progression workers than in the entire 2019 contract for all members. And there's more money in gains in this contract for temp workers than in the entire 2019 contract for all members. We won $1.25 billion for current retirees, which is easily $1 billion more than we've won for current retirees in the last 4 contracts combined. We were able to win for every group of members in our union by overcoming the Big Three's divide and conquer strategy and uniting our membership in ways we haven't seen in decades. Thanks to our unity and our strategy, we forced the Big Three to put more money on the table than they've had to be forced to do in a very long time. You know, looking at the electric vehicle and battery future, first off, our union does not have our head in the stand about the future. We know our industry is changing, and we know the billionaire class is seeing the dollar signs. They want to use this transition to electric vehicles as an excuse to drag down our standards. We know there's no reason we have to choose between good jobs and green jobs. This contract is the first big step to a just transition. At all 3 of the Big Three, we managed to bring thousands of EV and battery jobs under our national agreements. At Ford, we have transfer rights and pathways to bring thousands of jobs under our national agreement at the Marshall Battery Plant and the Tennessee Electric Vehicle Center. At Stellantis, we brought over 1,000 battery jobs in Belvidere under our national agreement under an employee leasing model. That means existing Big Three members can transfer in, and new hires into these plants will be covered by most of the provisions of our national agreement. At GM, we got workers at Altium Cells brought into our national agreement, with a pathway for some of the Lordstown GM members to finally return home. At both Altium and the battery plant at Belvidere, we'll negotiate additional contract provisions locally, but we have set a minimum rate of 75% of the Big Three maximum rate for new hires off the street. That means by the end of this agreement, any new hires at the battery plants will be making a minimum of more than $31 an hour. I want to be clear on this point. We can still bargain for higher wages locally, but the key to all of this was getting this work under our national agreement. It's going to take several years for many of these plants to come online, So by the time the big three are ramping up production at these battery plants, we're going to be back at the bargaining table and fighting like hell to get all of this work at the same rate. Until then, current members can transfer into these jobs with no loss of pay or benefits. And I want to be clear about one other thing. The reason this was important, that this was under our national agreement, was because we couldn't bargain for those things by law. That was the key thing to get done in this round. And the next key in this is, now that we can bargain for it in the next round, is getting everything back to equal. So whether we're building combustion engines or electric vehicle batteries, we're all UAW and we all deserve a decent life. That's what this contract provides. Thanks to the power of our stand-up strike, we've created a pathway for a just transition where there was no pathway before. Throughout these negotiations, we split the opposition by playing them against each other. And then when it was time to close the deals on core economics, we used old school pattern bargaining to full effect. Across our core economic issues, we maintained the pattern at all three automakers. All three companies got a 25% base increase in guaranteed wage increases to the top rate. When you compound that and add in our conservative estimate for cost of living allowance, that comes out to about a 33% wage increase over the life of the agreement. With the skilled trades tool allowance added in, that number increases to 37%. We also made historic gains for the engineers, nurses, clerical, and other salaried workers that we represented all three companies. These salaried bargaining unit members have long been treated like second-class citizens in our union. But in the new UAW, we're not leaving anybody behind. For the first time in UAW history, we won general wage increases for our members at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. This contract literally made history for all of our members. The historic economic gains in this agreement are not just life-changing for our members, they're a lifeboat to the communities we live in. Every dollar in the pocket of an auto worker is a dollar in our local community. It's more money for local businesses, more money to provide for our families, and more money for our hometowns. At all three companies, we won a 3-year wage progression, another win we got back from before 2009. This does two major things for us. One, it brings a whole lot of people way up to top pay immediately, and even people who are just moving to the new step one are getting a big bump. The bottom line is we're a lot closer to equal pay for equal work than we were before. A shorter wage progression also undoes the divide and conquer the companies have relied on. From now on, everybody in the door will get the top rate after 3 years, no matter what. That kind of unity on wages means we can be united to fight for other issues in the future. We won back COLA. The big three wanted cost of living allowance to go extinct. And we knew it was one of the many things we'd given up that we needed to get back. A lot of our members aren't familiar with how COLA works. We managed to restore the exact pre-2009 formula that was stolen from us. Essentially, they calculate inflation every quarter and add a dollars and cents amount into the hourly earnings to reflect the increase in prices. It can never go negative, and it adds up over time. Just like in the 2009 formula, the company takes 10 cents out of that calculation in what is called a diversion. But again, COLA can never go negative. It adds up over time. Our conservative estimate says that COLA is going to add $1.78 into every big three worker's base wage over the life of the agreement. And at the end of the contract, it gets folded into your base wage minus 5 cents. We can always fight to improve the COLA formula in the future, but in this round of negotiations, It was crucially important for us to win back what was taken from us in the Great Recession. We undid so much damage on wage tiers in this contract. At Ford, we brought Sterling Axle and Rawsonville onto the production wage rate. At Stellantis, we got Mopar into the production wage rate. And at GM, where we had a lot of problems, we got the GMCH workers, the CCA workers, the subsystems workers, and Brownstown all into the production wage rate. Again, this isn't just about lifting those workers up. It's about unifying our union. A divided union is a weak union. We can't have dozens of different pay tiers that keep us fighting among ourselves. We need to be focused on fighting corporate greed at the big three and everywhere else. And as long as we're divided by wage, we're weak. We also talk about division with the temp workers. For years, the big three have used and abused an army of temp workers. Not only does the company make a killing off their low wages and benefits, they also get to divide the workforce and play games with people's lives with little to no consequence. That ends in this agreement. At Ford and GM, we got all the full-time temps with 90 days converted to in progression. At Stellantis, we got the majority of them converted, with the rest to be made permanent within 9 months of ratification. That's a massive wage increase immediately. It's a life-changing contract for these members. But we also made sure the companies couldn't just do it all over again. We ended the perma-temp system. Going forward, no one will be a full-time temp for more than 9 months. After 9 months, you get converted automatically, and those 9 months count towards your 3-year progression. So just like anyone else, these members will be at top rate after 3 years. We also brought up the floor. Temps will now make $21 an hour across the board and will have profit sharing and other key benefits. We want to teach the companies they can't just continue to use and abuse temp workers while undercutting the standards for the rest of our members. Looking at retirement, we went into this round of negotiations to end tiers. One of the biggest and worst tiers in our union is the division between pre-2007 and post-2007 hires, which determines who gets a pension and retiree health care and who doesn't. We didn't win on this issue. The fact is, both of these issues are extremely difficult and expensive to fix, primarily because the big three, being so driven by Wall Street, refuse to have the liability on their books. But it's not just the cost. It's the Wall Street influence of not taking on any future obligations to our members. So already we're looking at 2028 for this issue, and we're thinking even bigger. Either the big three guarantees retirement securities for workers who give their lives to these companies, or an even bigger player does, the federal government. The fight for our future won't end because Wall Street says so. But we also have to recognize we're far from the union we were when we first won these demands. When we first won pensions at GM in 1950, almost every auto worker in this country was a member of our union. And still, they struck for over 100 days to secure that victory. Our union has gone in the wrong direction for decades, and we're taking on the hard work of getting back to our full strength. There are too many non-union auto workers and too much power behind the forces of corporate greed for us to win everything we deserve in one go. That's why we're building our strike muscle to go even further in 2028. The big three, Wall Street, and the federal government are officially on notice. When we win full retirement security, it will be because we organized the non-union automakers, we got our own house in order, and went to war for economic justice, not just at the big three, but across this industry and across this country. What we did win in this contract will still change many lives, and it will change the playing field for our fight for retirement security. At all three, we want an increase to the pension multiplier for legacy or traditional employees for the first time in over 15 years. At all three, we want back annual bonuses of $500 for current retirees for the first time in over 15 years. And at all three, we massively boosted the 401k to a 10% company contribution, which will more than double many members' annual 401k contributions over the life of the contract. One of the most important victories we won in this contract was the right to protect our jobs, not just with words on paper or an arbitration somewhere, but with the strike weapon. We now have the right to strike over plant closures, meaning if they want to close a plant, they'll have to face a strike threat across the entire company. At Stellantis and GM, we also won the right to strike over product and investment, not just closures. That means if they want to wind down or disinvest or indefinitely idle a plant, they'll face a strike threat across the entire company. We reopened Belvedere. That's something nobody thought was possible. And it totally reverses the old story. The Big Three has closed 65 plants over the last 20 years, and our union was never able to reopen them. We just changed that. And with the right to strike over closures, we're making sure they can't just keep closing us down despite the enormous profits we generate and the incredible contributions we make to this economy. Last of all, at Stellantis, we won another first for our union, the first employee Carlys Program. This new program will provide Stellantis employees with the same Carlys program currently enjoyed by company managers. Through this program, our members will have access to discounted leases on Stellantis vehicles. The discounted lease not only covers the vehicle, but also plates and registration, insurance, and basic maintenance and repairs. And no credit check is required. Best of all, this is a locked-in contractual benefit. Management cannot change or eliminate this benefit unless they change or eliminate it for everyone, management included, or as a result of a lawsuit or a change in federal regulations. Obviously, this innovative new benefit at Stellantis lays the groundwork for future wins at Ford and GM as well. There's a lot more in these agreements, of course, and we're trying like never before to make sure our members have access to all the information they need to make their decision. You can go to uaw.org to find the website for each of the three companies and get all the information. Read the highlighters and the contract language for yourself. Talk to your coworkers, talk to your family. As you know, I was not going to bring a deal to the membership that I thought was anything less than the best. I wholeheartedly believe we got the best possible deal out of these companies. And as I mentioned, a lot of people wondered if we'd ever get a deal. They thought we were crazy. They thought we were motivated by personal agendas and ideology. They thought we were too obsessed with our big picture vision to focus on dollars and cents. And for the most part, they were wrong. We were laser focused on getting the best deal possible for our membership. But there's one way they were right. This isn't just about a contract. This isn't just about cost of living allowance or wage tiers or battery jobs. It's about a big picture vision. The UAW isn't a pro-worker HR department, it's a movement. We didn't just win back our wages and benefits. We won back our power. We won back our organization, and we won back our solidarity. What we win in our paychecks is much more than just a dollar amount. What we win in these contracts is a reflection of our strength as a united working class. What we won in these agreements is a new muscle, a new chapter in the story of the UAW, a new understanding of our collective power. We have now taught the companies not to underestimate us. And we've taught the American public not to underestimate us. And we've taught ourselves not to underestimate our own strength. We don't just win when we get a raise. We win when working people everywhere start to understand our shared interest and our shared fight. We win when workers at Toyota, Subaru, Honda, Hyundai, and other companies see what we've achieved and get ready to stand up for themselves. We win when the corporate media, the billionaire class, and their political allies start taking us seriously as a force to be reckoned with. I'm honored to serve as your president, and you, the members, have shown the world that you can move mountains. And we, the mighty, united UAW, have a very, very bright future. Quite some time, but I'm going to take a few minutes and try to look through some questions if I can. So please bear with me because this thing blows up. It's literally had hundreds of comments, and just trying to look through some of this. I see comments about Belvedere and the wins there, getting 2 plants in a place where we were closing 1 plant, and the community was written off for dead. And it's I'm very proud of what the membership did. The Belvedere workers that stood together, the Belvedere workers that are spread all over this country, as a lot of workers at GM and Ford and other companies have been. We've seen that course for decades, and we're changing that course now. It's time to get some of these workers back home, just like the Lordstown workers. It's time for some of them to go home if they want to go home. I see comment about no mandatory overtime. I mean, there was a few things we were able to do. I know at Stellantis we were able to because they abused the critical plant status procedure. We were able to get language that said they cannot make plants go critical within 6 months of the contract expiration. I see comments about me not being on time, and hey, I apologize. Look, we are doing our best to communicate with our membership and get messaging out to you as efficiently as we can. We're moving around a lot. I'm in Chicago right now. We just had meetings at Belvedere yesterday with the membership there, and we have the president visiting tomorrow, so we have a lot going on. We've got rollouts going on over the country right now, so look, we're doing the best we can do. So, it's on me to do better. So. We deserve a 40-hour work week, something already fought for. I agree 100%. Look, I think we deserve a 32-hour work week, and we were laughed at for that. But you know what? We got the country talking about that now, and there are schedules like that in this world. We were able to eliminate some of the AWS schedules that don't work for our membership. Not all of them, but some of them. We just got to keep fighting on that. Like I said, we didn't win every battle. We made progress in most of these areas, but we didn't get everything we wanted. And the 2028 bargaining, it starts at the conclusion of this round of bargaining. Once we have a contract ratified, whatever point that is, then we start laying the groundwork for the next round. The fight never stops. Just trying to glance through here. I see here working people don't just have power, we have smarts, and we're a movement. And I'll tell you, there's a comment from one of the flight attendants who are with us. That's awesome. I mean, understand this, I say this over and over when I speak to people. If the COVID pandemic taught us anything, it should have taught the entire working class a great lesson. It showed the power that workers have in this world. Not just union workers, all workers. If you remember right during the pandemic, The fast food industry, to me, was a great example of the power we have as workers. A lot of fast food workers quit going to work. They refuse to leave their house for $12 an hour wages, poverty wages, and put their life on the line. And what happened? McDonald's and other companies had to raise the wage scale to $20, $22 an hour to get people to show up to come to work. And that's a great lesson for all of us to learn from. Organized labor has to lead that fight, but working class people in this whole world, in this whole country, no matter where you work, if you have a union or not, we have immense power. And when you join a union, we can harness that power, and we can form a massive movement, not just in this country, but globally. And we can take back our lives. We can take back our livelihoods, and we can get our fair share. Because as you all know, all the wealth in the world has been concentrated in the hands of a few people. 26 billionaires have as much wealth as half of humanity. That is a crisis. And we have an obligation as working class people and as union leaders to fight back on that, to bring people together, to organize like hell, and to reverse that trend. We have to leave it in a better position than we found it. And that's the goal. Sorry about that, I got sidetracked, but just glancing back through some more comments. I see comments about we want our time. Look, we're trying, we've tried to address so many issues. I mean, getting all these GMCH workers, CCA workers, the subsystems workers, some of that stuff, the subsystems workers went into the last day of trying to get that done. Again, we weren't able to get everything we wanted, but it doesn't stop the fight. It doesn't stop us from trying to get those things in the future. So I'm trying to look through here. I see, thank yous and so I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate y'all getting on here tonight or today, this afternoon. Like I said, we got a lot of work ahead of us. We're going to keep updates coming. A lot of plants have voted already on the contract. Some are still set to vote, and we leave this up to the membership now, and we're going to move forward. No matter what the outcome, we're going to move forward as a unified union. And I look forward to what the future holds for us. We got a lot of things to go to work on. We're going to organize like hell. We literally have hundreds of workers every day in non-union plants reaching out to us. They see a better path now. I've said this over and over. Bargaining and organizing go hand in hand. When you bargain a great contract, people want to be a part of that. When you bargain record setting, and you set the standard again, people want to be a part of that. My grandparents' generation lived that, the American dream. They came from poverty. They were able to move north and get jobs in UAW factories, and it changed their lives. And that's the goal. That's what we have to be as a union. It's what we have to be as organized labor all over this country and all over this world. We have to get back to setting the standard and leading the fight, and we're on the right path. So I appreciate all your time, and we're going to keep updating you as things progress, and just stay in the fight. Thank you.